Thank you very much, Nancy, and good morning, everybody. I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak at Power Monday today. Thank you, Otieno, Paul, Peter, and the team for the invitation. I've been following Power Monday since May 2020. I've attended several sessions. I've listened to recordings of the informative discussions. And so when I was invited to speak after 4 years, I thought to myself, it's about time. I'm truly honored to be here. So let's dive in. Okay, as a bit of background, this morning we seek to shed some light on an aspect of our lives that very often seems distant and mysterious, and that's the law. Many times when we hear the word law, we think of courtroom dramas, we think of complex legal language. However, the reality is that the law permeates every aspect of our lives. It shapes our interactions, our rights, and our responsibilities. So whether we realize it or not, we are all subject to the law. From the contracts we sign to the rights we possess as citizens, the law plays a pivotal role in defining and regulating our society. Yet, despite its omnipresence, many of us lack a fundamental understanding of how the legal system operates and how it impacts us daily. One crucial principle in many legal systems is a presumption that individuals are aware of the law. In other words, ignorance of the law is not an excuse for breaking it. This places a significant responsibility on each of us to educate ourselves about our legal rights and obligations. However, navigating the complexities of the law can be daunting, and that's where the role of lawyers come into play. While we should strive to have a basic understanding of the law, there are times when seeking professional legal advice is essential to ensure our rights are protected and upheld. So today, I'll start us off on a journey to demystify the law and equip ourselves with the knowledge and tools necessary to navigate the legal landscape more confidently. By gaining a better understanding of the law, you empower yourselves to make informed decisions, to advocate for your rights, and to contribute to a more just and equitable society. So I've got a couple of slides that I'll share. So that's it as for our introduction. Yeah, so we'll cover the fundamentals of the law and how it impacts our lives. I've said already that the legal system can seem complex and intimidating to those who are outside the profession. So I'd like to simplify some concepts and provide you with a practical understanding of the Constitution, legislation, branches of the law, and the invaluable role of lawyers in our society. So what is law? Law refers to the system of rules and regulations established by a governing authority to govern behavior within our society. It also ensures that individuals' rights and responsibilities are protected. Law is essential for the smooth functioning of a community or nation. And law is enforceable. It's enforceable by courts and police, but it encompasses enforceable principles and standards with the objective of maintaining order, resolving disputes, and promoting justice. Many times you'll hear the word the rule of law. What is the rule of law? And the rule of law is the principle that all individuals and institutions are subject to and accountable to law. The rule of law. Why is the rule of law important? Because it upholds justice and fairness, it prevents abuse of power, and it fosters trust in all legal institutions. So an example of rule of law is the right to a fair trial. If you are arrested by a police officer, to court, be asked whether you admit or deny the charges. And if you deny them, then there has to be a trial. So that's an example. Protection of human rights, and then constitutional checks and balances of the law is to create a just and equitable society. We'll talk a bit about the Constitution. At the core of every legal system lies the Constitution, which serves as the supreme law of the land. Somebody has called it the mother of all laws. And it defines the fundamental rights and responsibilities of citizens and governing the state's institutions. So yes, I just started off talking about the Constitution. And we said that it upholds democratic principles and promotes social justice and establishes the separation of powers. Now we talk about legislation. So legislation refers to the body of laws enacted by Parliament or other legislative bodies. These laws address various aspects of our daily lives, including criminal offenses, contracts, property rights, and much more. Understanding legislation is essential as it governs our actions, interactions, and provides remedies when our rights are violated. And we have two types of legislation, what we know as primary legislation, also known as statute law or primary law. And this is passed by legislative bodies such as Parliament or a county assembly. And it's the highest form of law in a legal system and holds precedence over other forms of law. So examples of primary legislation are Constitution, Acts of Parliament, statutes and treaties. So the Lands Act, the Traffic Act, the Registration of Persons Act, all those are primary legislation. And it typically sets out the broad principles and the frameworks. And then just below that is secondary legislation, also known as subordinate or delegated legislation. So some of the acts will allow various bodies or offices to make rules. So like the Chief Justice is mandated to make a lot of rules in respect of the courts and how they operate. It refers to laws made by authorities other than the legislature, typically under powers given to them by primary legislation. It fills in the details of how primary legislation will be implemented and enforced. Secondary legislation usually more specifically, it's usually more specific and detailed than primary legislation. And examples are regulations, orders, bylaws, and rules. And then you have ultra vires, which is beyond one's legal power or authority. That means if secondary legislation is in conflict with primary legislation, then it will be held to be beyond the power. And I think a good recent example is the housing levy. When the courts, when it went before the courts said that because the levy was only being charged to people with salaries, it was discriminatory. It should cover everybody because the benefits are for everybody. And so on that basis, Parliament now has to review that particular law. So let's move on to branches of law. There are three main branches. That's civil law, which deals with disputes between individuals or entities such as contract disputes, property disputes, and family matters. is also criminal law, which focuses on offenses against society as a whole, such as theft, assault, and fraud. And then we have public law, which governs the relationship between individuals and the state, and including administrative law, constitutional law, and human rights law. That's an overview of the court system. We won't say very much about it, but just to show the hierarchy, we have the Supreme Court at the top. Under it is the Court of Appeal, and then we have the High Court and what it handles: civil, criminal, and constitutional matters. It has divisions such as commercial and family divisions. Then we have the specialized courts, which have the same rank as the High Court, and these are the Employment and Labor Relations Court, as well as the Environment and Land Court. And then we have subordinate courts, which are the Magistrates Courts, the Qadis Courts, Courts Martial for the military, and then you have the tribunals. I'll talk a bit about criminal law because it affects professionals and businesses quite a bit. And it governs behavior that's considered harmful to society, and violations result in punishment. So the types of crimes that goes against property, like theft and robbery, violent crimes, assault, murder, manslaughter, white-collar crimes, fraud, embezzlement, bribery, corruption, cyber crimes, hacking, identity theft, online scams, all those would be under the criminal law. Now, for professionals, we have ethical codes, we have licensing requirements, and you're expected to have a duty of care towards your customers, clients. If you're negligent, if you don't meet the professional standards, that can lead to criminal charges. And examples are medical malpractice, legal malpractice, even though your profession would also discipline you, but you could become liable to criminal charges. For businesses, also companies, if you have a company, it can also be found to be liable for the actions of employees. So one of the things you need to do is ensure that your employees are aware of the things, their obligations, but also the things that they should avoid. And so environmental violations, product safety violations, financial fraud, all those can give rise to criminal liability. For professionals, again, one of the things that we need to do is to stay informed about relevant laws and regulations. And this doesn't mean you're expected to know them word by word, but an awareness of what they are and how they affect you, that's important. When we are acting professionally, in our professional capacities, we need to uphold ethical standards so that we can avoid criminal liability. And then we need to implement strategies to mitigate legal risks. For businesses, again, you need to develop and implement compliance policies and procedures, and also ensure there's accountability and oversight within the organization. And important, seek legal advice, seek guidance from legal experts to navigate complex legal issues. I think one of the things we need to remember that laws change all the time. Parliament will amend laws or bring new ones. Courts will interpret the law, and sometimes they change how it's applied or the meaning that we know it has. So that you've got to be aware of that and follow, so that you don't fall foul of the law. These are some of the case studies of criminal cases that have resulted in penalties. I start off with two from Kenya, the Goldenberg scandal back in the 90s. This involved the payment of export compensation for gold and diamonds that were never exported, but people were paid. And if you recall, there were many criminal cases. It was really never concluded decisively, but so that it just shows that even as a company you can be held liable. Chicken Gate scandal that involved the fraudulent procurement of election materials by IEBC. Those in the UK, the company in the UK that was involved, the directors, the shareholders were held liable, and I believe at least one person spent time in prison. In Kenya, again, that's been going through the system, but it just shows if you get involved in that, there'll be trouble. From outside Kenya, we had Enron Corporation a couple of years ago. This was corporate fraud and accounting scandals. And company in the energy industry was inflating their profits and hiding their losses. And eventually it came out in light, and their officials were also sent to jail and punished. Also, if you recall, one of the largest accounting firms, Arthur Andersen, it was one of the big 5 accounting firms then, also collapsed because they were their auditors. Not too long ago, we had the Volkswagen emissions scandal, where they had deceptive practices regarding vehicle emissions. Their emissions were higher than was permitted by the law, but they had software that concealed that fact when it was being tested. That was eventually discovered, and they've been fined billions of dollars over that time, and they've been sued by very many people. And Theranos came up with fraudulent claims about blood testing technology. Their founder was last year sent to jail for that particular exercise. So we'll change gear a bit and talk about access to justice. And one of the essential aspects of the legal system is ensuring access to justice for all. You find that in Article 48 of the Constitution. Unfortunately, many Kenyans face barriers to accessing legal assistance due to factors like cost, distance, and lack of information. So I'd like to just spend the rest of my presentation talking about the role of lawyers and how you can help them. We're professionals, we're in business. And so when we want assistance in particular circumstances, we go to those professionals who can help us. And I'd just like to talk a bit about lawyers. And they play many roles. We lawyers play multifaceted roles beyond representation in court, which is what the legal dramas we see usually have. Lawyers are problem solvers, mediators, and advisors, and they offer a spectrum of services to professionals and businesses. I'll just set those out. Legal guidance. Lawyers provide expert guidance on various legal matters, ensuring informed decision-making. They also represent clients in court and arbitration proceedings and negotiate on their behalf in order to resolve disputes. Lawyers draft documents and review them just so that if you're going to sign something, you're sure what you're signing will be beneficial to you and doesn't have clauses that can harm you or your business. And so lawyers prepare legal documents such as contracts, wills, and agreements to safeguard their clients' interests. Lawyers advocate for justice. They uphold justice, defend their clients' rights, and ensure fairness in legal proceedings. If any of you have ever been to a criminal court or any other court, you'll find that lawyers speak they speak English, but there's also a lot of technical terms that you might not understand or procedures you're not familiar with. a lawyer would help you in navigating through that so that you're not disadvantaged. Legal compliance, lawyers also assist businesses in navigating legal requirements and ensuring compliance, including legal and ethics audits. In matters of contract, whether you're dealing with suppliers, clients, or customers, lawyers help you to draft and review contracts to protect your interests in various transactions. And for dispute resolution, lawyers offer mediation and alternative dispute resolution services to address conflicts that may arise with customers, suppliers, or others. And that's the direction of the Constitution. It encourages alternative methods of resolving conflicts. So if you go to court, they also have a mediation process that if you have disputes before court, they can be referred to mediation. We also have a small claims court. If you have a claim of under 1 million shillings and you have all your documentation, you can go to court and move fairly fast, and you can represent yourself, you can get a lawyer, but those are some of the things that help move things along. So I will finish off our discussion this morning to talk about lawyers and common misconceptions about legal services. The first one is that many people believe that lawyers are only necessary when they encounter legal trouble. And lawyers are important for that, but they also provide services like advice, contract drafting, estate planning, and more to prevent legal issues from before they arise. So my advice is we must adopt preventative ways of dealing with matters, just to know where problems could come from and deal with them in advance. And lawyers are good at helping you doing that. Another misconception is that all lawyers have the same skills and expertise. But lawyers specialize in different areas of law, such as family law, corporate law, criminal law. So it's essential to choose a lawyer with the expertise relevant to your needs. And I'm hoping that for those of you who are familiar with the law, that helps you in getting the best person to represent you. Many people assume that hiring a lawyer is prohibitively expensive. And it's true, they can be costly, but lawyers are guided by a remuneration order. Additionally, there's legal aid and pro bono services that may be available for those who qualify. And just something about this expense, I think sometimes when you say it's expensive, the question can be asked compared to what? Because if you represent yourself and if lawyers will tell you how they many times have to manage something where somebody started off a case and ran into big problems. So let's also think about, when we're thinking about cost, let's also think about the value that lawyers bring to the cases you have, to the disputes that you have, to anything, to any legal issues that you have. And also remember that some lawyers have an arrangement where they have an annual retainer fee for legal services. And how that helps is that it provides you with consultation and legal advice throughout the year for a fixed annual fee. And of course, you'll agree on how many consultations you have, so that all of you know what you're getting into. And so this arrangement would allow you to have peace of mind, knowing that you have access to legal assistance. Sorry about that. So that you have legal assistance when you need it. This proactive approach ensures you receive timely guidance and support, and it helps you navigate legal issues and challenges effectively. Again, another misconception about legal services is that now that we have a rise of online legal services, you can go online, type in your issue, and get an answer. And some people believe that they can adequately address their legal needs without consulting a lawyer. And those services are useful, definitely an improvement to what we had in the past. But what they provide are generic templates, but they lack the personalized advice and expertise that a lawyer offers. And different situations might call for different solutions. So you want somebody who will be able to say, yeah, you might pick a document in court and online and use it as a contract, but laws are different. The Kenyan law and Ugandan law might be very different on a particular point. So you want somebody who's knowledgeable about that, who will be able to guide you and ensure that you don't get into any difficulties. And finally, that legal documents can be do-it-yourself, that you can do your own documentation on your own. And legal documents are complex and require precise language to ensure their validity. Errors or omissions in legal documents can have significant consequences. Consulting a lawyer ensures that documents are drafted correctly and tailored to your specific needs. Think about, you could write your own will, but if you don't get it correct, by the time it's discovered, you won't be around. And so you'll have many difficulties that could be avoided. And so that brings me to the end of my presentation this morning. I hope the things that I've shared will be useful to you. But if we have questions, I don't know how you do it here, but I'm glad to answer any questions. But let me just say this in my conclusion, that the law is a powerful tool that affects all aspects of our lives. If you think about it, by understanding the Constitution, legislation, the branches of law, the role of lawyers, you can better navigate legal issues and make informed decisions. As professionals and business owners, your performance can be enhanced with a solid understanding of the legal landscape. Thank you.
You brought in very insightful information to us. We always accept questions on chat unless somebody wants to verbalize it. But most times people just give their questions on chat and then we read them through. So so far I'm yet to see a question, but we welcome them. Any question so far from the audience? Or if you want to say it, you can raise up your hand and speak your question.
OPP, can I ask the first question?
Yes, you can go ahead, Daktari.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Senior Counsel. My question is that we have managed to elect parliamentarians and members of county assemblies who are perhaps deficient in their knowledge of the law. Do lawyers actually advise these people before they legislate some of these draconian laws which are oppressing us as a population? Over to you, Senior Counsel.
Okay, if I may, and good morning, Melvin. Good to see you. Yes, true. I mean, if you go to Parliament and county assemblies, the counties, Parliament has a full-fledged legal department that helps them in the drafting of legislation. The Office of the Attorney General has a legislative drafting department that helps in this. And in the counties, you have county attorneys, and county attorneys are supported by many other lawyers. So when county assemblies, when Parliament, the National Assembly, Senate are doing that, they're aware of that. But as I said, if they don't do it properly, or if they pass a law that is against the Constitution or that they can't make, that's why you have the whole setup where the courts can come in to rectify that by striking down that particular law. I know it's a process, and it can take time to do that. But what can I call it? There are protections that ensure that things don't go too badly off. So I think we can take some consolation in that, and we can also, for ourselves, when we are making the decision of who to elect to represent us, to make laws on our behalf, I think those are some of the things we can keep in mind.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that one is well taken care of. There is a question. Thanks for the session. Is it possible for a lawyer to be compromised? I know someone who got very frustrated when purchasing a piece of land with lengthy delays at the land's registry, but when they changed the lawyer, the process was completed expeditiously. So, is it possible for a lawyer to be compromised? I think that's the big question. And then I think the other question that is not being answered is, when a lawyer doesn't perform, is there a way that can be addressed? I know you've been into that field, so you can always give an answer to that. Thank you.
Okay, let me take that. I think it's a good question, because one of the things about the legal profession, when you're training lawyers, one of the big things you do is a course in professional ethics, professional responsibility. And the legal profession, the law society, has very strict rules regarding the ethical responsibilities of lawyers. And one of them would be loyalty to their clients. They shouldn't have a conflict of interest. So if you find that your lawyer has a conflict of interest and you have evidence to support that, there's actually a body that deals with that. That's the Advocates Complaints Commission. It's a department in the Office of the Attorney General. You can find them online. You can even contact them by email or online. And what you do is you put in your complaint. It will be investigated, and if it's found that there was professional misconduct by the lawyer, then the commission may charge him before the Advocates Disciplinary Committee. And that's a committee that has the power to sanction the lawyer. It can fine him, it can suspend him for practice, or if the misconduct is so serious, they can actually strike him off the role of advocate. So for those who, if you have a complaint and you can actually you have the facts to support that there was misconduct, is that, and the legal profession is very clear about that, about ensuring that any misconduct is dealt with immediately. I see also a question by
there are other questions. Yes,
let me deal with this one. I'll go down and see Odhiambo, Olale, about estate associations and rights. Again, we go back to the Constitution, which allows people, freedom of association. So people who have common interests are permitted to come together to pursue those interests, because as one person, there's only so much you can achieve. As many people, you bring your resources together. It can be money, it can be just different thought processes, and help that and do that. And estate associations have been there because many times there's a feeling that the authorities are not doing the right thing. And if you remember, a couple of years ago, the Karengata had a very strong association. They withheld paying of rates and used the money to repair their roads and ensure their lights were on. I think eventually the city council then sat down with them and did that. So estate associations are important, and we need to do that. As I said at the start, we need to be aware of our rights, and then find forums in which we can pursue them and hold the authorities accountable. So let's, so for estate association, register them for your issues. I mean, take advice. And we've had, again, you know, the Karangata, that's something that went to court, and the court allowed them to do that. And I'm sure there are many others that are quietly are doing this. Sometimes, you know, a specific estate will take it up, but sometimes for instance, an issue that has been coming up a lot is the construction of high-rise apartments in some areas, and how that is affecting people's rights, the right to light, air circulation, the services available, roads, sewage, water, electricity. I mean, that's affecting, and different residents associations have taken those up, but I'm aware that there are also efforts to now come and say, because you see the planning permission is granted by a particular body. So if different associations come and it's still going on, then maybe there may be a need to just go once and for all and say, but why are they doing this? Why won't they follow the rules and all? And so it continues. So people will be held accountable for what they're doing. Difference between law and justice. You know, law is really just the rules. Justice, you know, and different people define it differently, but you know, justice is really the outcome. So you want people to be treated fairly, and if they're not treated fairly, there'll be a way of correcting that, so that you make right. So really, it's the outcome versus the rules. In the case of the Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, which is chaired by a non-lawyer, is that not against the Constitution? No, I mean, the thing about tribunals is, ideally, tribunals are, it's a good idea to have a lawyer, because a lawyer, legal issues can arise, but it depends on what the law itself says. If it doesn't have to be a lawyer, then that, but many laws will make provision for a lawyer to be part of a situation or a board or a disciplinary tribunal that's doing that, just to guide on the matters of law. But remember, when it comes to a professional body, you have rules, and so the tribunal will be applying those rules. So it just depends on what the body says. I was a member of the Estate Agents a registration board, which has a disciplinary body, and the chair of that disciplinary committee is the chair of the board, who has to be a registered estate agent and not necessarily a lawyer. So it just depends on what the law says. Someone is curious why I'm addressing my family tree, because I come from such a big family, and I really started this exercise when I lived in Kisumu, away from my family, and the idea was for my son to know who the members of his family are, and so he knows them. But I've just continued because the family continues growing. Some members depart, new ones come. So it's always good to know who's there. But interesting question. Maybe we can talk about that one day. So the family tree is just to find relationships between people. Who are your people? And I use software, so I collect the names, I collect the photographs, I get the voice notes, so that I've got the voices of people who may not be with us, and you can remember that. So, yeah. Do loose partnerships in business or professions have to be made legal or registered? I think that's a good point, because if you start off as a sole proprietor of a business, the law doesn't even see it as, you might use a name of a business, but it sees it as you. When you join together with other people, it's useful to have some sort of organization, some registration, because then it secures your rights. If there's a dispute, and not always disputes. For instance, if you invest money, resources in a business, and you pass on, your family ideally should be entitled to receive your share of it, or at least the profits corresponding to what you put in. But sometimes that's not possible if it was just a loose partnership, no partnership deed, no registration. So it's good to have it done, and for the business, the various different business organizations, there's the business registration service, which is located in Upper Hill. I think the building is 360 or 316, 316, I believe. Yeah, on Second Gong Avenue. That's where they are. That's where you go and register your business. Concern is that more often poor people tend to suffer legal procedures compared to the rich, and that can be true, Maurice. The thing is, and that's why we have various bodies who will give pro bono services to those who cannot afford them. That's why the law itself has legal aid to support those, because I realize that sometimes if you can't afford to have a lawyer, and that sometimes makes a big difference. Just having somebody to represent you, to walk you through the process, very important. And the legal aid by the government, that's been on for several years now, but you have to qualify in terms of your income and the nature of the case. It's not all cases that can be handled. My number Turi, thank you about that. Certificate of urgency, a nice laugh for a Monday morning. My contacts, yes, I think I'll share my contacts, that you can share an email address. I'm glad to respond to that. Okay, I think I've
thank you. Yes, you've taken, I think, all of them. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, for further questions, you can always reach out to him directly, and he'll be glad to help. So I want to call your fellow Lenana boy, and that is Dr. Melvin, to give a vote of thanks on our behalf as part of the team. Dr. Melvin is one of us in Farm Monday. So Melvin, this is your time.